Well, Emer, thank you very much for that beautiful introduction. And I have to say, I have so many great memories of our college days, our visit, our trip to Greece, our masters, which was actually an experimental study thing, wasn't it? And then anyway. So, and thank you, Joe, very much. It's absolutely lovely to be in Cavan, in the Townhall building as an arts building, and it's wonderful, and it just has such a great atmosphere. So I don't know how long you want me to talk for, and I'm probably going to, I have a lot of slides, but don't worry, I'm not going to labour on them all for too long. And I just thought what I would be maybe helpful would be just to pick out a few things that maybe I've done, and another time might pick out different things, and maybe that kind of also, it was really, I suppose, interesting to prepare this, because it's like all of us, sometimes you don't know how to make sense of the life you live and what the work you do, and are there any patterns that are that sort of seem to repeat, or maybe tell a story, or something that you can say maybe, oh yeah, okay, I really liked this, and I really enjoy doing this, and I really enjoy doing that. But one thing I knew from very early on was I absolutely loved working with artists, and I got so much out of them, and it was always, the work was never, I don't think I would have been able for this, it was never a situation of I'm going to make this thing happen, and you're going to come, and I'm going to give, you know, there was always so much of a two-way thing. And I think that's the same, as we know, with the arts. There's so many people involved in different parts of it, and the artist is the person who's doing the creative work, but the engagement for an artist with others, curators, producers, venues, all that things really is what can help an artist to keep going along as well. So anyway, enough of that. I just put these slides together, and we'll come to this one later, but that's me pulling a piece of limestone with Niamh O'Malley in the Venice Biennale when we set it up in 2022. So I wanted to start with a project in Cavan, and it was called the Grey House. And I could just say I was here as an arts officer in the early 90s, and it was the first kind of arts, I suppose I was the first arts officer in the county, but there were a very small number of arts officers, and they were being appointed for local authorities. So I think when I became an arts officer, there were 7 around the country. And I moved to Cavan, and I hadn't a clue what really was expected or not expected. But I met people like Joe and Jane McCormick and Pauline Halton and Philip Lawler, who was set up in the office with me as the kind of the editor of Drumlin magazine, but much more, and many other artists. And we did a lot of things together, and it was a feeling of, I was just saying there to Joe, was kind of like a feeling of finding your tribe and finding people that you had things in common with. And we were all very young, and we were utterly inexperienced, but there was no experience to be had. But as I was there for about 3.5, 4 years, and towards the end of my time I met the artist Patricia McKenna, and I don't know if any of you know Patricia, but you may have known her because she has done quite a bit of work in Cavan. And Patricia is an artist who lived in Dublin, but her family were from Swanlin Bar. And I'll talk a little bit about this project because I think it's so interesting, and it was so formative. Patricia was, I suppose she was interested in the idea at the time of rural, of the displacement of people out of rural Ireland and how it was emptying out. And I suppose that was a kind of a interest for her, because her family had come from Swanlin Bar, and she was first generation to Dublin, and there were kind of that relationship to her family and the stories of her grandparents in Swanlin Bar, but also that somehow that kind of like, I suppose she wanted to, through her work, find a way to, I suppose, speak to these things. And she was interested. She made paintings and she made drawings and she made works on paper, but she was very interested after going to Padua, to the frescoes, to seeing the works of Giotto, etc., that she thought immediately that what she was really interested in was space. And she talked about these things, and of course these were the kind of conversations that, you know, were really wonderful to be part of and listening to. But she I'd met her with another small exhibition that she did up in Black Lion, where we had to borrow blankets from the local prison. But she came with this idea that she wanted to find a house that was abandoned in Cavan, and she wanted to make an installation of it. And that was her mission she set me. So we set about finding a house, and we found this house outside Belturbet through another friend at the time, and Patricia created this installation in 1993 called the Grey House. And she did things that I think at the time were so, I suppose they were so extraordinarily, they were certainly new in terms of the practices that were going on in the country. I mean, she was very clear she wanted to engage people, but she was also very clear that the way that she wanted to engage people wasn't like, I suppose, like working with the community in a socially engaged way. It was actually that she wanted to work with them towards collecting their objects, their stories, their memories, but that would be part of something, because she felt that she wasn't going to come in here into this town and place things without some connection to people. And again, that was also really interesting, is because, again, I suppose over and over, realising that the making of the work sits in the world, and the relationship with people and visitors and viewers, etc., all kind of matter. And the way that an artist might think around that is also maybe part of their practice or part of their work, to lesser or bigger extent. So with Patricia, these shoes, I'm sorry these images are very poor because I plucked them off Patricia's site, because actually they were, she made a little book, a tiny little book, and it was so nice, and she had Louis Lenton do photographs for her. It was all beautifully documented, which was another thing I learned, how important it is to document your work. But I can't find the book. I can't find the little book anywhere, so that's, but anyway, it does exist somewhere. And with the shoes, she put in maps of the townlands. She was interested in names of the places and things like that. She worked with fabric. She was interested in the tension between materials and one thing and another. And she wanted the house itself was the vessel in which it carried the works. So the things in the house, the objects in the house, like the stove or the peeling wallpaper, were all part of the experience and the encounter. And also for people who are, I suppose, the sculptural practices, that sense of moving through the rooms and being on a journey, and the experience that the different rooms might give you. And I think it was certainly captured local people, audiences new to art, artists, critics, writers. Nuala Fuelon came down. She wrote a big piece in the Irish Times about it, and the walls being like the walls in Padua. And it was very, it's a very powerful piece. Patricia got funding. We got funding actually through the Arts Office, through the Gulbenkian Foundation. But Patricia came up every weekend and opened the gates and went down and was there. And again, those early days where an artist was somehow, they did so much, and there was so little funding, no money, there was no project awards, no bursaries, none of that stuff at all whatsoever. But anyway, we know that. And she was shortlisted for the Glen Dimplex, which was a wonderful accolade. So that's just some more images, very bad images. The walls and broken, cutlery. And then Patricia went on and did other. Patricia could come and talk to you herself. She probably has done many times. You'll be familiar with Patricia's work. So that was 1993, and I was thinking like that at that time as well. There was just as a kind of another reference in the UK, Rachel Whiteread did her house. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that project, House, which was amazing, which was on which is speaking to something kind of similar but different. So Patricia was talking about the abandoned, these houses that were kind of, people had left them. Actually, a lot of the time, the family or the farmer or whoever might have built a bungalow and the old house was there beside it. But in London, in the Grover Road I think it was the Grover Road where Rachel Whiteread's house was, it was a house that they were all knocked down, a big row of houses, and it was the last house that was going to be left, and she asked if she could cast it, and she cast the house inside out, and that became a very powerful piece of work. Again, about the subject of everybody needing a home. I suppose it was the beginning of gentrification and change and land and da. So it was interesting. It's interesting, these subjects that get carried in art and held in art and the meaning of the time. So after I left Cavan, then I went and I did work in Dunleary Rathdown as an arts officer. I went from one arts officer to another arts office. And again, I didn't bring any projects from there, but just to say that was also a really fabulous 4 years. Even though initially I found it heartbreakingly hard, I genuinely was, I absolutely loved my time in Cavan, and there was nothing ever like it. I think it's sort of ingrained deep in my heart and my memory, and always will be. But the people, and I think we did all kinds of strange things, from pageants to Jane McCormack did amazing brick symposium in the brick factory in King's Court, and that, as part of the Sculpture Society, and that was so out there for its time in a way. And of course I traipsed along and got into the whole thing, and I suppose there was a wonderful kind of madness to the brick symposium that I don't have images of it, but they were the thing of the time for artists and sculptors to sort of have these symposiums where they would come together over a particular material and work away. And it's interesting because that's gone now. We don't see that anymore. And maybe it's the question of what materials artists are working with, because they continue to work very strongly with traditional materials. So after Cavan, and I did a stint in the Arts Council, I went and I did an MA in Goldsmiths in London, because I actually found myself in the Arts Council sitting around a big lovely table and feeling incredibly lost for missing the actual being out there. And maybe it was the doing of the things, or I don't know what it is, but it was something to do with the difference between looking at applications or policy or things that were probably, in one way, I've actually grown to be very, very interested in how things are shaped at another picture. Although the Arts Councils, and I hope there's nobody here from the Arts Council, a lot of the work now would be kind of bureaucratic, and in the sense of, maybe bureaucratic's the wrong word, but a lot of assessments, etc. But it was a very interesting time to have as well. But I knew that I needed to go back and do work with artists, and I thought, what will I do? And I looked up a few courses, and I said, okay, I'm going to go and do this course in London in Goldsmiths as an MA in curatorial studies. And that was really interesting, and it was also very terrifying. It was down in New Cross in South London, and I was in a class of about 25 people, and everyone in the class seemed at the time to be younger than me, and they would speak about the, even though they were only 20 or 22, they might start off, introducing themselves, saying that they had written for this important publication and that important publication. And I really found, and I remember opening the first text we were asked to read, Henri Lefebvre, at the production of Space, and I thought, oh, crikey. And actually I thought, this is really easy, and I really understand it, but it couldn't be. And it was actually, it was fascinating, but dense and interesting, and theory, and a lot of theory, and a lot of driving yourself towards creating projects and that. So it was really focused on being an independent curator, of meeting people from all over the world, which was fantastic. There were people from Japan, from Australia, from New Zealand, from Denmark, from England, from France, etc. on the course. So it was very global, and it was in 2003. So it was, I suppose it was 2003, 2004, that kind of time I went there. So it again was kind of quite formative, and I suppose it gave me a certain level of schooling, but like anybody doing an MA, you kind of feel like it just opens a can of worms and you don't know whether you're coming or going, and what are you learning and not learning. And again, it's the life and the experience, and as somebody said one time, the building blocks of that get put down over time. Again, and I should also say that I suppose, okay, so I'll just go into this project because this was a really, I think this is another special project to me. Was in 2010, I got the job as they had an open call for a curator in residence for Wicklow County Council, and I thought, oh, I'll give it a go, and I went to the interview, and at the interview, Jenny Sherman said to me, do you want the job? So anyway, I got the job. As the first time I ever went to an interview and somebody, anyway. So it was really, again, it wasn't like, it wasn't like an artist residency, which I really think should be valued for, that you don't have to do a single thing. You don't produce anything out of them. You're not set, oh, you have to come in now and you have to make this piece of work, and you've got to, that it gives you time to breathe and absorb things or whatever, but these it was sort of like more like, this is going to be a project and there's going to be an outcome, that kind of residency. So, but I was really interested in discovering who were the artists that came from Wicklow, who were they, could have pulled them together, and we identified 11 artists and 2 other curators who, one was in the gallery in the Mermaid Eilish Lavelle, and the other one was Rosie Lynch, who's gone on to do fabulous work in Commonage in Cavan in County Kilkenny. I don't know if you know Rosie, but Rosie's very, very interesting curator as well. And I asked them would they like to join me, and whatever bit of, we'd split the money and so on and so forth. And we met, we did reading groups, there were 11 commissions, we did reading groups, we met, we kind of messed around, we listened to each other's practices, and we thought about what we would do. And it was the time again in 2010, if you recall, it was the time of the recession. I think the recession hit us in 2008, 2007-8, and I remember, I suppose we all know the story of the world outside through the story of our own lives, but I remember that moment in 2007 when we heard the news that the country was falling and there was no money and and the Bottle Bank and so on and so forth, and the Anglo-Irish Bank. But anyway, there was very little money. There was all cuts and cuts and cuts in the arts, and those working in the arts long enough will know that. But there was all this overbuilding of housing. I don't remember all the ghost estates and all the housing. So there was a glut of empty buildings everywhere. It's the opposite of today. It's funny how the world goes in these 180 degrees and then back again, another 180 degrees, and it changes around. Anyway, so with the artists and our meetings and everything, we definitely thought we wanted to give every artist an opportunity to make work for a public moment, for public exhibition. And just one instant, after lots of talking and thinking that maybe what we'll do is we'll invert it and we'll go to the Mermaid and we'll do something in the Mermaid. And I don't know if any of you know the Mermaid building in Bray, but it's actually not a great space. So we thought, well, we would maybe do something like we'll do an intervention in the gallery and we'll invite an architect to work with us. And we'll, and this is without any money, right? We'll take over the gallery and we will create a space, and in the space, every artist will have a go, have a turn, have an exhibition, and we'll do. And we were absolutely energized by this idea, and we thought it was fantastic. And then I thought, who could be the architect? And I remember saying to Rosie, I could ask my sister, but that would be complete nepotism. And she said, no, wouldn't. Absolutely not. So we asked Grania, and Grania came in, and she was the architect with the office. And because I really also squeeze as much out of her as possible. And then we knew this fabulous builder through Rosie of Dave Brickenham, who's down in Kilkenny. I don't know if you know him, an amazing guy who like the high end of craftsmanship that you could imagine. And they designed a structure, and the structure went into the Mermaid, and that's the, I'm just going to show you, whiz through some of these now. So the building was in a birch ply, and it had, what they wanted to do was create, they were very interested in the notion that when people step into a thing, you feel your floor, you feel the surface you walk on, and that there would be a route through it so that it wouldn't just be one room, it would be kind of circularity. So you come in and come out, and so you'd maneuver. So it had actually two chambers and a kind of a little alley hallway, and it was quite small, but it contained these little spaces in it. So that's a picture of the model, and then these are the guys building, and that's another one of them building. So you can see the kind of a lot of that classic architecture where there's nobody in making the gallery spaces. So they're kind of like, sorry, I should be looking this way. You see them in looking at the you know, there's glass instead of walls. You know, classic, this was a gallery space. It was the afterthought of Art Centre building, where the gallery was going to be some kind of nice foyer. And I'm not quite sure where you put the art. I think there was one wall, 1.5 walls anyway, and something like that. And, you know, they kind of pulled off a programme, because you do. Space is space. But this was so much, there was so much, I suppose, so much fun and skill, these guys, and putting into it all. And I should say we applied, the reason we could do it is we applied for a project award with the Arts Council, and we got it. And we also got the wonderful Arts Office in Wicklow really stumped up and gave a good lump of money to it as well. And nobody really got paid much. The artists all got, like, every artist got 1,500, which was at least something. And the architects got nothing. The builders got whatever materials money. So it was done in one of those really wrong ways, but it was done because there was a desire to do it. And then this, just one or two of the works, is CLIODHNA. I don't know if you know CLIODHNA. Was doing very interesting work with technologies, and she's interested in live streaming data. So she actually went on and made an amazing piece in Dublin on the Shirtser bridges, which are the bridges going down onto the port on the north side, where so this was kind of an early, so I suppose what I'm getting at is that she was experimenting with this kind of technology of collecting live data that would change something within her screen. So flights coming in and out and things like that. She was messing around with that kind of stuff. And then she got a public art commission subsequently, but she did and there were a huge big screens up on the Shirtser bridges, and they were connected to the ships coming in and out of the bay, out of the port. And they just literally said their names, and it was very beautiful. So the names of the ships would be on this big display coming in and out, and they had the most lovely names. I can't remember any of them now, like Ulysses, and, you know, and then very shippy names. And so it was kind of really interesting, because we saw where she could go on and develop this bigger work, and Felicity Clear, just to show you, and then B. McMahon, just Mary Kelly was doing something about memorials and babies. She took the outside space, and we had readings every reading group, and then we had artist talks, artists talking to each other, you know, about the work and the project. And so that was great, and there was great audience and great spirit around it. And then the artist B. McMahon, who's seriously ambitious, decided that she also, as well as doing something in the little place, she had this idea for a big field work. So we had to find a field which wasn't too difficult, because there was lots of empty fields, and there was somebody whose father was a developer who lent us the field. We had to dig. She dug 8 holes. Her mother was a white witch from Wicklow, Eunice is her name, and she was doing these kind of yoga classes with these middle-aged women friends, and the idea would be that each of her 7 friends would stand in one of these holes. And Ronan McCrae came with a camera that could rotate around and catch them. And B made this film, which I don't have a clip of, and I'm really sorry. But as she made it and edited it down so that she began her life as a mathematician, so she was interested in measuring and how things could change. So the women stood in the holes and the camera rotated and captured it, and then in post-production and afterwards she made the thing whiz, and it was as if the women were spinning in the air. But it was done through camera, not CGI, not special effects, none of that. It was done through the actual thing. But what was lovely was she brought along, people came to the moment when the whole thing was filmed, and that became an event. And there was also we had somebody who was into spiders and came and gave a talk about spiders in the field, and there was that kind of thing going on. So it was a kind of lovely kind of community, and that's her mother standing in the field, and that's B with one of the camera people. It looks like a scene from the film, and that's people coming in to this grassy field, and that's her mother in the thing, and that was on building, and so that was that project. So, and the little building, the little structure won an architectural award. So that was nothing to do with the artist, but that was kind of nice. So then I'm just going to talk about Venice for a bit. Is that okay? Time? So the Venice Biennale, as you know, is every 2 years, and there's an open call, and artists and curators are invited to submit for it, and I think the open call is out at the moment for the next 2026 Biennale, just to say. And Niamh O'Malley, that's Niamh in our studios in Temple Bar in her space. And Niamh O'Malley, I had actually a number of years ago asked her would she be interested, and we actually put a bid in. That was, but it didn't come to anything. And she came to me this time and said, would we try it again? And so we went for it anyway, and we were very lucky. We got the I don't know, the opportunity to do the Venice Biennale, and then obviously it was I think it was 2020. I'm just trying to think. It was 2021 because it was during COVID, so it was a particular time. And I'm trying to think whether the interviews were held. Yeah, they were held remotely. We had to do a remote interview, so it was all during COVID. Everything happened, and it was a slight delay in the time and everything. And that had ended up having its pros and its cons, but it was absolutely, again, so special to work with Niamh and just to be concentrated on one artist. And there was also Michael Hill, the program curator in Temple Bar Gallery and Studios, and myself, and obviously the Temple Bar Gallery and Studios, the whole team would get engaged, plus our board and etc. So it ended up being quite a lot of people who were really in supporting and helping this to happen. So Niamh was in the studios, and also she when we went for Venice, she didn't have a very specific project. I'm going to make this piece of work, or it's going to be about this, because that was not the way her practice, what her practice spoke to. She was more interested in in materials and what materials could do, and yet at the same time beneath those they would hold some kind of meaning or value. And obviously coming from Mayo, she was always interested in, I suppose, questions of landscape and how we, how we again move and encounter works in the space. She started actually as a painter and then went into moving image, and then actually started working in materials, and she worked and sculpturally she started working with glass, because I suppose she was interested in that question of how we view and see things, looking, say, at questions of landscape, from the precipice to the places where you get perspectives, you get these views, you get places where you kind of gather and cluster together. So all these things were going on in Niamh's mind. She has done a PhD, I think, in a good few years ago. She had given up teaching to be an artist full time. and she's obviously really feel that she really knows what she's about, and I've also learned so much by just being around her in the making of this project. And we were very lucky because our office is upstairs and Niamh was downstairs in the studio, and it was always off. It's a south-facing studio, so it was often really, really sunny as well, and very attractive place to be. So that's the limestone pieces. This is the room in Venice. Have any of you been out to the Biennale in Venice? Yeah, the Irish Pavilion. So the Biennale is also something worthwhile maybe going to sometime. I mean, it's a job, but anyway, the Irish Pavilion, so to speak, has its own space at the end of this big, long, huge building called the Arsenale, which was for ammunitions, and it was a place, you know, so it's kind of like a big, huge, long hall, and you're actually knackered by the time you get to the end of it, and you don't want to see any more art. And then suddenly you come to this room which the Irish government has put its hands on and now is keeping it. But luckily it's the last room, and you open up the door and you're out and you can see the canal, and you're going, you know, maybe at least, you know, the way when you get to the end of something miserable and you've got the last thing to do. I shouldn't say miserable. I shouldn't say that. But when you're going along and you're saying, okay, endurance. Okay, I was thinking, okay, I'll change it. Say somebody who's swimming the channel. And they must be coming, and they must be at the last sort of moment when they're coming in, and they get a new lease of life. Okay, so that's what I mean. But anyway, this room is down there, and actually the other thing about this room is that you can't hang on the walls, on the brick walls, and there are walls, but they had to be reinforced, and then we had to tidy up another bit of a wall. So, and Niamh is very, very interested in the space she makes her work in and how things are positioned. She did a beautiful exhibition in the RHA in 2019, and I think that space is particularly challenging, but for one reason or another I think she set that room to dance. It was absolutely marvellous. So that's just, you know, it's just to make you jealous of the view out the window there, and there we are. So she makes work, and she worked with people that she works with for a number of times, specialists in steel and in wood and in stone. So again, she's depending on others to do certain parts to the work. So, but there's a lot of hand in the work as well. So this is her creating, but putting together one of the pieces that was made in parts to go into the crates so they could carry and be shipped over. So glass, steel and wood. And that's me washing the windows, just to say, that's, you know. So, I mean, they were filthy, and I got into washing the windows. But as you can see just outside there, it was lovely, and you could just sit there and hang out and have the nice, especially in March when we went over. It was really special, and that's the thing. So these are just a few views of it. So you can see she used big LED screens, which again, in the Biennale is a big job of work to get some more funding for it. And we had a lot of help. The OPW pre-bought a work in advance, so that was really helpful. The City Council gave us funding, and a number of patrons gave money, as well as obviously Culture Ireland and the Arts Council. But you have to do a bit of fundraising, which is a pain, but it had to be done. So it allows an artist to do things of ambition and bigger and whatever. And I don't know if you've ever had to get or will have to get LED screens, but they're not cheap. And then again, little things like I have a book, I'm going to leave it with you, Joe, but it's of the Biennale book, and I'm happy to put one in the post for anyone else. But that they would stand on, that the LEDs would stand on these metal stands. So again, they would just be taken a little bit off the wall. That's the kind of detail Niamh is really into, and the shelf. And there you see, so this was a vent, and it was a moving image piece. So the louvers kind of like that, very slowly. And the thing about the vent is that was a piece in the wall of the building in Temple Bar, so like that, and she filmed it, and it just was magnified. And again, there's this interplay between the moving image and the still sculptures, and what happens when we move around, and how the moving sculptures make us stop, and the sculptural works kind of make us, the still works make us walk around. And those were the kinds of things that I suppose was interesting to discuss with Niamh, to really get singularly engaged in what the artworks are doing in a kind of more experiential level. And the works were called things like canopy or shelter or vent, so they were actually things in the world. And I kind of had a sense of something between a garden and a sanctuary. So that was that, and that's again these limestone pieces in the floor on wood, and that's more of it. So it's very elegant. I don't know, it was a beautiful, elegant piece, and that's us outside after we had installed it. So that was me with that fantastic opportunity with fantastic Niamh O'Malley. So then just very quickly, I'm going to run through, I just work in Temple Bar Gallery and Studios now, and I've been there actually for, I can't believe this is a long time I've been anywhere, it's 10 years, which is a very long time. But I'm in a wonderful organisation with 5 other people. Five and a half of us is in we run the studios. The 0.5 is a fantastic finance person. And the studios, there's 30 studios. I don't know if you've been to Temple Bar, there's a gallery off the street. And we do 5 exhibitions every year. We work with artists from the beginning, conception, through to the delivery of their exhibitions. And I suppose the things, I'm not going to speak really to any of these exhibitions in anything except to say that the window is, again, I suppose the things you become interested in is the idea of the spaces you work in, the sites you work with, the people you work with, and the communities that brings you to. And I never had really formal gallery experience till I went to Temple Bar, and there's a program curator there. So there's people who've come up through that very, like they've worked in one gallery and another gallery and whatever. So I was quite tentative about the job. I did love working with artists, and I love the notion of developing possibilities, but so it was also the first time being in a kind of a formal institution with actually a staff of people, because when it was in the arts office, even here and then even in Dún Laoghaire, there was just about an assistant arts officer in Dún Laoghaire, and it was kind of very, very temporary. So I'm so glad that sort of thing has changed in the country a lot. Still, we know that is something. So anyway, there's the big windows and the gallery, and it's a very nice space because it's sort of not too big. It speaks to the street. It's very accessible, and it's very simple. And that's Hannah Fitz, Andy Fitz, clay sculptures, and these are literally just clothes put together like that into a figure. So that's Lucy Mackenzie, a Scottish artist interested in appropriation and looking at practices from the 20th century, a fascinating artist. And so we work with international and Irish artists, and so just moving, that's Mark Swords, took 2 sides of the gallery, and that's a Tusapur Husseini who was in the studios with us as well. So some regularly, but not formally or not in any way, we work with artists in the studios and that on an exhibition and invite them, but there's no expectation. That leaves it very clear that it's not about exhibiting the studio artists, and that keeps the lines very clear. Atus is an Iranian artist who works in 8mm, 16mm film and sculpture and performance, and that was a beautiful show she did last year, and she put it was a vinyl on the windows and then these silk curtains that came down and sort of screened and gave another layer of light to the room. And that's a French artist, a young French artist who we did a kind of partnership with in the Frac in Bretagne, and she won a prize and our prize was to have an exhibition in Temple Bar Gallery and Studios. And we were in partnership, and we got to select Fanny Giselle. She came to Dublin for a month and had a production space. And her work was with glass and sculpture, sand, and she also worked with performers. So there were performers every day in the gallery who took up her sculptures and moved them around and then put them in their hands or played the sound of there was water in the glass bowl and made that sound. And it was a very whimsical and gentle and quite beautiful installation. And see it there, and that was that. So then in the studios, I just thought I'd show you the studio artists, because again, this is Gia Lynn Long. We have 30 studio artists, and this is a graduate residency artist who we are lucky to be able to we have a sponsor sponsors this award every year, and one artist from the colleges, from any of the BA courses or indeed MA courses, once they're just no more than 3 years out of college, can apply. And Jia Li Long is a Chinese artist, and it's the first time we've ever had a mature MA artist and a mother as our recent graduate residency artist. And she works in photography and is working really fascinating now with AI. And she gets a big, huge studio for free for a year and 5,000 stipend. And it's a great start. And that's Lisa Freeman. We're going to work with her this year. The next exhibition coming up, that's her in her studio. That's Brian Fay. And I just showed that because if you can see outside at the end there, here's a balcony looking onto the river. This is when they made artist studios. McCullum Mulvin were the architects who designed this building as part of the cultural quarter in Temple Bar. And I think, again, I suppose it does dawn on all of us that there really is such a dire need for artist workspace, and it's something that we have not got, we haven't solved. And also since the 90s, there was a bit of building, and then in the 2000s there was art centres built, and there hasn't been so much in the last while, and yet there's more artists than ever. And it becomes a challenge. Where do you show your work? Where do you make your work? How do you get together? Those are big, big questions. That's Atusa, who made the exhibition. Atusa's in her studio there with all her little film equipment. And there's CLIODHNA, who works with plants and gardens and communities and refugees, and a beautiful practice. And Liliane Puteaux, French artist, fantastic. I'm going to work with her next year. And then we do a book fair, and I just threw that in fast, because the book fair is wonderful in terms of that we have an open call for artists to make books, and we get books from all artists who can apply, make a book, and it's in the fair, and it sells, and we don't take any of the money back. But we also have a whole programme around it and a whole pile of other books from art publishers, etc. And we've been doing this for the last 12 years, and so it's hugely popular. It's the most popular thing we do in the gallery. It's phenomenal. And again, the gallery is turned into this different kind of place. There's tables and books, and everyone's concentrating. And then we have a huge program of talks and events and panels and workshops, etc., etc. And it does incredibly well. And we have a sponsor for that, and that's somebody enjoying a book at the book fair. And then this year, because we were going to have to do a building job, which we're now not going to have to do next year, we're taking 2 of our projects off-site, which I think is going to be such a challenge, but so exciting. And I just thought I'd show you these because I thought they'd go back in. So we're going down to Dublin Port, and we're taking Liliane Puteaux and Yuri Patterson's works. And one of them involves a car and a shipping container, and the other one is a huge AI piece that's going to go in the pump station, which is connected to the levels of water and water levels and pollution. And it's an absolutely stunning piece. I'm going to put it in this building here with the big LED screen. So we're going to work with Dublin Port, who are fantastic and have been great, and giving us funding for it too, and will help us hopefully. So that's Yuri's piece in Witten, and that's Leanne's piece in Palace. And I'm just going to rush through. I don't know what that is. Oh yes, these are just another thing we've done that things kind of successful and very interesting for artists is we've created a room, we call it free space, and we basically give it to an artist or a group or someone, and it can be used. It's one of the studios that's onto the street, and what it does is it lets an artist do, say, set up a mini exhibition and invite curators to come along or others to meet it or whatever else. So it allows them to actually take a step, to go into a room where they can actually step back, hang the work, install it and see it and whatever. That's Banva McCann. But Vanessa Donoso Lopez is there at the moment doing something on the floor. Frank Sweeney made his film there. Again, it's just it's a space for that's what would you say, that has become incredibly successful, and it actually is. It's a kind of. It doesn't really cost anything to do it. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, I mean, it's a bit of looking after and a little bit of management, but it's so meaningful to the artists. And again, that space might another day be used for a workshop, whatever. And then I just put in this work, final thing. Am I okay for time? This is a little book that I made for the On Building project. We all had to make something. And I just thought, when I was looking at it, I was going, oh, I better bring this in and put it in, because I think it says, now I know nothing. And this is from James Baldwin's book, oh God, I forgot the title. The black American writer, The Fire Next Time. And it was about 2 essays on racism and the dominance of the white perspective on race. And when I did this, I was sort of interested. I had read the book and I thought, oh, I know what I want to do. I want to whiten out all the text and just take things out that hold meaning for me in the book, that I could feel as a person, reading it. This was this is way back before anything in Black Lives Matter or whatever else. And I'm not trying to say anything about knowing that. It's actually the opposite, because even now when I look at it, it's going, my God, how did I cover up all his words? How did I do that? That was a terrible thing to do. Do you know what I mean? It was a terrible thing to do. But I was thinking, well, that's kind of interesting as well, because it also shows you, he was trying to speak to the dominance of, so sometimes I put it up to show you that sometimes we don't have a clue what we're doing, and we're doing things and we figure it out afterwards or something like that. But I'm not an artist. I'm not an artist, and it's the only artwork I've ever made, and I also did it because I knew I could do it with Tipp-Ex. Okay, so that's as basic as I get, and that's it. That's all I'm going to say now. I've finished, and if you have any questions, I'm very happy to answer you, and thank you. Okay. Will I turn this down then? Yeah. And I hope I didn't go very fast through everything, or too slow, or boringly.
I have a question about the Venice Biennale application.
Yeah.
I'm 51 now, and I've been through our college. I have no idea that anybody could just apply. I presumed it was like a very complex process where people had to be put forward by some institution or whatever.
No, right? You could go to Joe. You could say to Joe, I'd love to do the Biennale. Would you be interested in working with me? And Joe could say, I'd love to work with you. I'm just saying it, right? Yeah. You mightn't say that, you mightn't ask him. And then you would, if you look up the Culture Ireland, the website, it's out now, and it's based, what they do is they ask you to prepare a 2-page document. It's about maximum 2-page. I don't even know, I can't remember actually, this sounds terrible, but I don't recall whether we had to put any CVs or anything like that. I don't know that they even look for that. But they ask you for very specific headings. And so they ask you for things like what you're about as an artist, what your work is about, how will you do. And I suppose in a way, I don't even know if they ask you all those questions, but you might lay it out like that. How you're going to raise the extra funding, how you're going to do the PR, various things like this. And of course you talk to other people who've done it, because it isn't rocket science. Nothing ever is. But so it is absolutely an open call, and the thing I think of all the things that probably matters very strongly is, I suppose, someone will, Emer Walsh, they're going to be doing it this time around, and I don't think Emer had even a solo show. I'm not sure. They certainly had a strong profile, and they're going to do something very interesting. They're making a house that's sort of between, is it being built or is it collapsing? And it's, and so the partnership between, the relationship between the curator and the artist, I think is important, and some kind of relationship there that you could get along, that you could work together, and it's open call.
Is there any space for us painters in contemporary art? It seems to be, everything seems to be gone.
Oh, you're so right. I'm so sorry. I had loads of painting. I did Mark Swords, right? And we worked with Sinead Mulroney and lots of artists, and yes. But I suppose that you would look at that and you would say, oh, I'm only interested in installation and space and materials and people moving around. Totally. Painting is fabulous, and it's never going to not be an important medium. It's definitely the most popular medium. It remains the most, in one way, most popular. But because I suppose, I don't know, other people will have different views, but because I think that other, all that time when it was death of painting and blah, 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 and, and then people complaining that, that that they couldn't, that there needed to be other, there's lots and lots of reasons. Maybe it was knocked off its perch, say. But certainly there is fabulous painting today and going on, and it is a really exciting time for painters. And I don't know what kind of paintings you make, but all kinds of diversity again, like it could be figurative, it could be abstract. It's all kind of less now about style so much. And people there are trends, and I don't know if I can put my finger on exactly what is the difference between, we could say, but art, like of contemporary art versus modernism versus but it's made in its time, and it's of its time, and it speaks to its time, whatever that is. But certainly painting is, I think, really healthy and strong, and yeah, and lovely to work with, because it's lovely to have a show where you have 12 nails on the wall, But then painters are doing all kinds of things too. They're coming out of their frame, they're pulling their walls down, do you know what I mean? And that's a really good thing to know, like, as well as why you do anything. Because you don't need to do something. Sometimes the way that you work is the absolute right way it is, and it can't, just because someone else does 10 somersaults to make their work, that isn't maybe what your work is about or why you're making work. So say, for example, with Patricia is an artist who likes to work 2D but obviously for her and in her time, and maybe when she studied and she was hanging out with the women's group and the feminist movement, all those things come in, and they affect probably what she wanted to do in the language she wanted to use.
Can I ask you, Cleon, do you think that a painting exhibition would ever be chosen for the Irish Pavilion?
Yes.
Or would it have to have some element of practical space as well as the paintings?
Yeah, I really hope so, and I think so, And it's funny because, if there's a few people you'd think, like, if you did it again, there's one or two people come straight to your mind, and they'd be painters. And so, absolutely. And there are, and in the Biennale, the last Biennale, the main Biennale, because what happens is the Biennale has all these national pavilions. So every country, and it's a very imperialistic model, like it would have been, so you have I think it's called the Great Britain Pavilion, and all the countries have a pavilion. And then you have the main curator, there's an invited curator, and they select work from everywhere, whatever, and they have that arsenal, that place I told you that you go down and you go to the end, and then and then there's another building they have as well called the Italian Pavilion, and in the Giardini. So those two spaces, they curate those. And last Cecilia Arlemani's exhibition, The Milk of Dreams, which she did for the Biennale that 2022, it was full of beautiful paintings and painters from all over the world. It was a very strong component in the work, so definitely. And I don't see why not. And I think it's even really confident when you don't have to feel everything has to be a spectacle or theatrical or whatever. But there is a lot of that too. So let's face it, that is a big aspect. And then you see artists are working now with AI, and Emer knows more about that than I do, because you did a panel with them down in the last VI session, and so any tool they can have to hand, they'll want to exploit it. But I also notice in the studios and over time, a lot of artists who are painters are committed to painting, and artists maybe who do other mediums like sculpture, they mess around with lots of different mediums. They're much more promiscuous, I think. Yeah, maybe, but But then there are painters doing very versatile things with their work as well, and or installation type of things, yeah. Are you all painters? Mostly, yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
When you did the space in Wicklow,
Yes.
11 artists,
Yes.
the architect that came in and
Yes.
designed the building,
Yes.
he won an award.
Yes.
Did he know that he was going to enter that particular job for that award before he did it?
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
No. How that would have worked was and it was a woman, but there was a man as well involved. So there was, how that would have worked would have been, they would have did the project. It was a temporary, if you like, it was like a little pavilion in a building. So it was like an inside structure as opposed, and they entered it themselves as an architectural practice into the RIAI, which is the Royal Institute of Architects of Ireland, have an annual award thing they do, and lots of architects apply for their projects, and they apply for their projects and then they're selected. And this little project came in and it won an award. But they didn't do it they didn't enter the project. The award doesn't give them any money or accolades, and it's post the project happening. But for 99.9% of buildings are there for a life. This was going to come up and come down again. So that was, yeah.
That, but what I'm getting at is, when they realised
Yes.
the quality of what they were doing, that it
Yeah.
appealed to them maybe more than they originally imagined. The idea was, maybe we should enter this.
Oh, I get you. Yeah, absolutely, totally. You're right. Yes, that they selected it themselves to say, "Oh, this would be worth putting forward." They were proud of it. Yeah. No, totally. Yeah. No, you're right. As opposed to, absolutely, totally. That would be said. They self-assessed and thought we're good enough to put in for this, and because probably I don't actually know. They may have architectural practice might only be allowed to put in one of their projects or two of their projects. Who's to say? I don't know, but you would be selective, definitely. Yeah.
No, it's it's an art practice in a way to find your way with while you're doing the job
Yes.
to a quality that supersedes your ambition. That you can.
That's so true, isn't it? And I'm sure you must find like I don't know, like that thing of what you surprise yourself with and what you end up doing that you don't understand. You don't know how did you do it, and then your job is to know it's good and it's finished, and you've got that's as well as all your skills and talents and abilities and dedication. Yeah, that's true. Editing, isn't it, as well?
Everyone knows how good a thing is, because you can get someone in to paint a wall, and then when they're finished, this is just in your house, like, when you finish, you go look at it and you decide whether it's good enough,
Yeah.
good enough or not. So
That's it, yeah. We're always, we make judgments all the time about everything. Yeah, it's fascinating. And I think one of the things that I have to say, again, that I would have learned from being with artists and being close to them and hanging out with them, and is I am always taken with, I feel they're they're deeply observant people, and they notice things, and they're aware of things, and they pay attention. They pay attention to things in the world. And that's always really a beautiful thing, you know. It's just it's a real gift, I think,
yeah.
you know. Mm.
Do you have any advice for artists, sort of, you know, say looking for an exhibition?
Yes.
What is the best way
To go about
to
that?
a gallery or?
Yeah. Yeah, very good. That's a really good how to get an exhibition. Well, I suppose it depends as well on where the artist is or whatever. But like it's I suppose in different contexts will be different. Like obviously in you know, the exhibition is so important to the artist, and putting it into the world. I mean, that's really important. And there isn't enough opportunities and spaces, whatever. And it's also really nice to work in a formal way or get opportunities like that. So anyone getting an exhibition here, Joe, will have come through something to be selected for that exhibition. Yeah, and maybe it's through a panel. And I think, so I suppose there are those things, like there's kind of like open calls and group exhibitions and various things like that. But there's also maybe getting to also your peer support and getting to invite curators, or trying to find a way to, and not necessarily just where, you know, really purposefully by yourself go about it, and keep it open-ended. Maybe don't think about it being something, oh, I'm going to invite this curator now and something's going to come out of it. But maybe what comes out of it is even just something they say, and it's whatever else or something else. And it's just really have to keep eyes open and go for things all the time. But I don't think soliciting galleries just out of the blue. I mean, I do think if you've got a practice where you do know people, whereby, you know, like it's not to say like in Temple Bar we get sometimes we get approached, but like say one of the shows we're going to do this year, somebody he wrote to me, and he hadn't shown in Ireland for 10 years, and he's based in Berlin, and definitely would have been really, really interesting, you know. But he has a sizable track record. Very rare, we don't get so many of them, and often they don't necessarily always lead to that. So it's not to say not to do it, but it's just how you do those things, you know. And I never say never do those things, because you could do those things. But I suppose if someone is going somewhere and you're introducing yourself to somebody for the first time, a gallery or whatever else, it's so, like, you're not seeing the work first of all in the flesh, and I think we all like that, don't we? And then you can really know it. I mean, I'm doing something tomorrow night, and some of the work I hadn't seen till today in the flesh, and I'd seen it and it was different to what I thought it would be when I went into the space, you know. But people are very cautious to, you know, whatever. But there are all over the country as well. There are little spaces and spaces. I know now Esker is going to put out an open call down in Offaly. I know that, for example, because I heard that, you know. And there are things like that are absolutely genuinely for everyone, and it doesn't hurt to apply. But I do think the other thing is get yourself a good set of images of your work. That's really kind of good idea, and be selective about them. And in another way, I do think possibly you have to nearly show your more recent work. It has to be, if you only show work from one period and there's a gap, if there's no reason around that gap, that's another thing. And I think being very clear about, I mean, Jesus, I'm sure you hate writing anything about your work, and it's really hard. But you know, keep your statements like legible, clear, simple. Just
Absolutely right. I just think they're so difficult.
they are.
They're so challenging.
Yeah. Somebody said something very simple. They said, look, just say, what do you, it was Barbara Knesvik, she was telling me, she said to me, she tells her students, you know, she said they all come out with all this stuff, and it's all this concept stuff first, and then it's says, what do you work in? And it's just the medium, What are you doing with it? And what, I can't remember the three things, but they were really simple things, which is structure. Basically, dead simple. What's your medium? What is your medium? Maybe what are your, something about your processes, and what is the work kind of, if it is about anything. And it doesn't have to be about anything.
SHAFFREY is very much right now.
Oh, yeah, excellent, yeah. But be careful.
I know.
Be careful, and lose the adjectives, and lose the huge language, and keep it. Yeah, but it's also like get someone else to help you and show it to someone else. Don't worry about it's not your job. Yeah. I also feel you're visual people. You speak in another visual language, and I learned that as well. And that, for sure, the very, very excellent speakers are, you know, all kinds of artists, and I think you're the philosophers for the life, for the world. But you know, you don't have to be a good speaker or communicator. Images are really important, Joe. We could invest in that. Get somebody to photograph. They're so important, aren't they, Emer?
They're the be all and end all.
They're the be all and end all. And if you have a film clip, maybe if you have a moving image, maybe you do an excerpt. You can put an excerpt plus a longer version. But be sure many people will either speed along and look at it, or they'll just look at the first few seconds. But your images are so important. And you can doctor them. I don't mean doctor them, but like take out things like, you know, silly old wires, or, you know, but be careful with them too, you know, and the quality of the light and the image, and probably can get, they're so important, Emer, aren't they?
We've got it easy now. Like in my day, we had to do slides, and like
I know.
The wrong slide. You have to wait to get it developed, and then go and like take them again.
Yeah.
I contest that a little bit. I think when there were slides, we were more discerning and more careful.
Totally.
Yeah,
I just think now it can be done so quickly on an iPhone or whatever that sometimes we're in a rush and we just don't take
the time to compose,
consider the right
lighting,
lighting and compose.
Slides, you make sure you get it right.
And the other thing is, don't forget, there are people, like I showed you some practices tonight, and we have someone come in and document that work. They're not the artist. And I showed you other things like Patricia McKenna's, which are whipped off the website, and the pixelation is really poor. But like, so, you know, or one or two that I took myself that are, I don't know, but they were on my phone, but they were more set up as notes, like the docs and things like that. But I totally think there's something about it. And the other thing I think with images is there's the image of it itself. No matter what it is, painting, whatever, it's very nice to see a bit of the context, how it's installed. I love to see that, the space. And sometimes artists put in an image of themselves in their studio, and that's gorgeous as well. And the paraphernalia around them, that can be very winning, because there's a bit of you in there, and it's also, you know, so I'm not saying that you would do that if you're applying to the Arts Council and you have 6 slides. That might not be the image you pick, but you know, I have seen artists put them in for studio applications, and but they are so important. Yeah.
Does, like, on somebody's CV, does it matter if they've got gallery representation or
No, not in the slightest. There's hardly any galleries.
That's interesting, because I would have thought the opposite.
No.
My life
Lose your anxiety. You've no, you know, it's very, there's no gallery representation. But find out the people like maybe who are going to be curating Tulka, some of the really good little things around the country, you know, that are really, Askeaton, Limerick is a really interesting, you know, maybe there's like, you know, I think the peer connection is so important as well, and supporting each other. Going, you know, there's a community here, isn't there, Joe? There's a strong community. That's very powerful, and you feel it, you know. And this is a lovely room. It's a lovely room in every way, and you've lit it nicely, and everything about it's really nice. And that is that speaks of, everything speaks of something, I think.
What I think is great about Cavan is that there's, and I'm talking particularly about Joe here, is there's a real sense of possibility. I've never had a no from
No, I love that too. I know. We're yes people, aren't we? Yeah.
And just in terms of you were talking about Venice there.
Yeah.
I loved what you said about Maeve O'Malley and that there was no particular. She didn't really have a plan.
No.
I was thinking of like the 14-page or whatever it is arts application where everything has to be end-based. That seemed like a real generosity in that process.
Yeah, and we did, after the 2-page or the 1-page or whatever it was, we did have to sit this interview, and Niamh made a little film for it. But what she, I suppose in a way, she had the ability then to speak in a, you know, in a kind of in a almost very careful. She's very good with language actually, and she was concise, but she spoke in a way that was very poetic, but not it wasn't waffle, and it you know, it held you. And she asked questions that, like, you know, because it was in, I suppose it was a notion of how we are in the world and our desire, you know, for, I suppose at a very elemental level, like how we materials and how we hold them and touch them, and even if we're not touching them, there's a sense of tactility around things and that. So, like, suppose those are very hard things to put words on, but you can maybe do it in another way, you know. So you don't, yeah, absolutely. And it's not about. That's not to say that artists who make work about things that are traumatic. Like I went into that little gallery in Temple Bar called Ton, and Joy Gerard I just went in because they're going to open it tomorrow night. She's got 4 American flags hanging up, and they're all grey. It was so powerful, you know. The American flag, all grey, and it was really like, I don't remember when Trump, remember his inauguration ceremony. It was like something I felt out of Nazi Germany. Like, was like something like Leni Riefenstahl would have filmed, wasn't it? It had that, and then these 4, and then these 4 flags hanging up. It just like, it was just, so of course everybody does things differently, and she's making political paintings of protests and things like that. So you know, again, but for many artists, that's not immediately. And other places do it. The news does it. You know, journalism or whatever, podcasts. You know.
I'm just thinking in terms of biennales. I was at the Kochi Biennale.
Oh yeah.
In Kerala.
Yeah.
In 2018.
Wow.
And that was Sudarshan Shetty was curating that time. But I've never been to Venice, so from looking at pictures and that, just in terms of an observation of how things can be done differently.
Yeah.
So Kochi is,
Yes.
I know it's
Yes.
in Kerala, and
Yes.
it's a trading port, and it has a really deep history of lots of different cultures that come through trading.
That's right.
From the Far East, and the Italians were there, the British were there, Portuguese. So it's got this amazing architectural heritage, and we love it. All the buildings are different, and there's Jewish quarters and Muslim quarters and Christian quarters and churches. It's fantastic. But the whole city is taken over for the Biennale, and they invite a curator, like yourself. They invite a different curator every 2 years, and they select the artists, and basically they're given different buildings. So it could be in a warehouse. So
I know.
It's all site specific, and you go from one place to the other in a rickshaw, or you walk.
Oh, it's fantastic.
You know,
I love that. It's fun, and it's a great way to experience a place.
It's a fabulous.
Yeah, it's not like a trade show at all.
No,
It's
no,
like
no,
it's
no.
you're journeying into the city, into all these places. Like Liverpool Biennale is well, a bit like that. I mean, it has the Tate and the Blue Coat, but it uses buildings around the city, and it's fantastic. Yeah.
Well, it's called that one.
They know it sounds.
It's called the People's Biennale.
It's lovely.
Really, everybody goes in. There is a charge, so that
Yeah.
stop maybe that's prohibitive to some people. Because,
Yeah.
You know, in a country.
Yeah,
like
no,
Before,
India's not.
it's
Yeah.
prohibitive. But most people go in, and you can see things without having to pay. You can go to the beach, or you can go to the port, and you can see.
Did you notice a difference between the kind of style of work there in that atmosphere of kind of India compared to, because I went to Biennale like in Berlin, and it was what you would imagine very Germanic kind of leaning art to me. You know, there was a lot of black and white photography, a lot of conceptual work, a lot of kind of performance stuff. I was wondering, was it more colourful, was it more kind of
Because the curator chooses, and the curator can be from anywhere.
I suppose, yeah.
So, I mean, the curator afterwards was a poet from South America. So
Oh,
that was
fantastic.
huge, very, very different. But I actually thought, what I thought was really amazing was the how well made, and I don't mean this in a clinical, but things were so well made. There was such craftsmanship.
Yeah.
There was such skill.
Yeah.
And a really, paintings, drawings, 3 sculptures, performances, and I think it was a lot of that had to do with space. I mean, there was an amazing. I just held out one because it was so powerful, and it was by a poet, and it was incredible. It was in one of the actual, it was in one of the storerooms down at the port, and it was for storing. But what they had done was they filled it with water, so the water was sort of knee deep, and it was about the immigrant experience, and it was about the child that had died crossing the Mediterranean. And all along there was sort of like flags hanging, but they were like sails of a ship. So you actually had to walk through the room. So you were sort of standing, so it was like you came in the door, and it's just this big long room, and you're looking way down to the end, and there's text but you can't read it because it's too far away. And the only way to get down is to walk through the water.
Oh yeah.
And you hold up your clothes, and you're worrying about your mobile phone, and you're worrying about your bag, and you're sort of going down through the water. The water is only really to your knees, it's not that deep. But you're conscious how first world you are. And you're walking along, and you can hear the sounds from the port. So you can actually hear the sounds of the ships.
Oh wow.
The real ships.
Yeah.
And everybody's silent. Nobody's talking, and everybody's on shuffling along through the streets.
And they're concentrating on feeling on their sort of like weird and out of their.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So many beautiful, momentous installation pieces. Yeah, that were just great.
How did you happen to get to that?
I was on a residency in Cavan.
Okay.
And I was shown in a small gallery there at the same time.
Oh,
so
nice.
It was great, yeah. So we.
Lovely. It's a fantastic place, isn't it?
Yeah, it's well worth it. You should put your name down for that.
No. We'll take Cavan. I don't think so. No. But you are saying something that's kind of really, I suppose, an important thing as well, is going to see things. Going to see other exhibitions and other artists and all of that. That's part of the practice as well. And so I think that the notion of the artist in the garret is kind of gone, isn't it? Although that's not to say that some people can do it. And it's not to say that it might not be everybody's temperament either. Like I do know artists, I do know from lots of conversations with artists how much they feel like they belong in the cave as well. And I think we all do have just that. But and this kind of thing of this sort of tug of war with having to be, wanting to sort of go away and then also wanting to go out, and because I suppose it's very human to need to belong to things and connect. So, but the thing of you know, the residencies are kind of not uninteresting as well, you know. Some of them are probably better than others, but tips for going to galleries is getting seen and getting into exhibitions is artists are curating as well, or co-curating with curators, or, you know, there's all like, you know, I suppose but it's always like this thing, isn't it? Like, it's like you do something and then there's the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I suppose there are a lot of artists today as well. But I think there must be a lot more artists working today than there were.
There seems to be, but it doesn't seem to be more space.
There's no more spaces, no. And there's not ultimately that much more money.
Yeah.
You know. And visual arts, to moan and groan.
Those awards that you mentioned, some of your artists, I was like, oh yeah, I remember, like the Glen Duplex.
Oh, that's gone.
Anymore. There used to be the National Poetry Award.
Is that not there? Zurich Prize?
Now it's Zurich, but it used to be in Arnott's, I remember. They used to have it downstairs in Arnott's in Dublin, but like sponsored with something, and then it disappeared for like decades. So like a lot of things.
There's no award either, and there's no big flashy award, and that would be kind of interesting, whether that would be, like sometimes you need things at both ends. You need the big prestigious-y thing, and there's like you know, the Venice thing or something, and the Turnery Prize, and because if you could do it, that exercised a big conversation out in the world about, you know, because look at the Golden Globes and the great chats about how great Irish film is, and Cillian Murphy now, and it's really, and all the names were beginning to become just really familiar, even if you haven't gone to see the film, but it's just and the literature prizes, like the Booker Prizes, but we have, like, there's the Golden Fleece Award, and I don't think there's much else really. And it would be interesting, and a big fat prize, yeah. I mean, sometimes artists say, oh, they hate them because then they hate the shortlist, and then they hate, you know. But it wouldn't be. It's to get conversations going about the value, because I think the visual arts are. I don't know where they sit in terms of the beyond, because contemporary art is definitely challenging for the public for some reason or other. I don't know why. When you describe the people in India all turning up to the Cochin Biennale, it's fabulous. It just really, that's what we want, isn't it? Like loads and loads of people coming in here, Joe, to the gallery.
Yeah.
You know.
But it's hard even to get people to go to the gallery, really.
Yeah. And the sector works very hard to that end. There's no end of talks or tours or workshops or a really and very warm atmosphere. It's not like they're cold anymore, like places where you know you shouldn't be in. And this is a friendly building, isn't it? So, you know.
Yeah. I suppose, people either come or they don't.
What's the opening hours of this building?
I don't know.
The opening hours of this building?
Well, the gallery is open from 10 until 4, which isn't great.
It's not, because see, a lot of people are working, that's why they don't come in.
Yeah, and on Saturday it's
just unopened after hours.
Yeah.
Also, I think post-COVID, people just aren't going to look.
Oh, it's changed the world, hasn't it?
Theatre, people have just gotten used to. And people
Netflix.
With the cost of living as well, so they're saving on petrol and stuff. But
it's coming back.
But the galleries are open all day. You see, that's the thing, you know, like.
Then, as you say, if people are working, you know, you don't get in.
No.
And what would the footfall, how many people would visit the gallery here each year? Be 60,000?
Oh gosh, no.
30,000? I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Make it up, Joe.
Like, you're talking about 20 people a day, sort of like, or.
But they're 20 lives.
What?
They're 20 people's lives.
Yeah.
I think that's very powerful to think that you do something and 20 people give it attention.
Yeah, that's like it's.
Yeah, it's 20 lives.
Like,
yeah.
Our biggest
I think.
thing was when the festival was on. the street. Over 2 days, I'd say there was about 1,000 people in.
Okay.
Do you know, so because there was people on the street and the doors were open and they came in, walking around, like it was full on.
And you see, you can do that every so often, but there isn't the resources to have that hot.
It's because people are in at something and they have time on their hands to wander. But most times people are going, I know myself, like, I'm going someplace and I don't have time.
No.
I'm going somewhere else.
Are you put them up online?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
see, that's a bit of a downfall there as well,
Yeah.
because if people just sit at home and see it, oh, that's what it looks like, they won't bother.
No, like we'd only be putting up, you know,
Just
an
a
image
feeder,
or
yeah.
just to
A
let
feeder.
people know, yeah.
And do the
yeah.
schools come up or something?
Yeah, we get schools, depending, like, I mean, sometimes, like, you get a great run with the schools, and you never know why, it could be just their timetable, whatever, but we let them know every time.
Yeah.
And, like, you could get an exhibition where you have no schools, and the next exhibition, you could have, you know,
Loads of schools, yeah.
So it's-
We've the same, and third level students.
yeah.
That like we noticed that it's September, October, or something like March and April. There's a certain time when they come, and then they don't come the rest of the time, and it's a glut or nothing. But there's another thing we have to remember as well. When you go into the gallery as well, there's something about having some. It is about like having sometimes you don't want it to be thronged. Sometimes, you know, it's actually to. I'm not trying to say that we don't need to make audiences, because of course we do, but
Intimate showings are important.
yeah. I think how like if we were reading a book, we would read it, you know, but maybe 50 million other people could be reading the same book, you know. But it's you're on your own with that one piece of work, and there's something. Yeah, there's something about that.
Just the row seats, that people just will sit down, and just sit there and just.
Oh, there's always seating there, in it. Like,
Okay,
yeah.
no, I haven't been.
I think the problem is that the town does not have a large enough facility to attract anyone in. I think it needs
A bigger space, a gallery
needs
space.
a massive space.
Be careful with the massive space.
Yeah.
Because if it's you, so the space. If you do build a gallery,
Yeah, you don't want something that.
give it. There's loads and loads of lessons to learn. There's loads of lessons to learn.
Comparison
Yeah.
to what we have here.
I know.
Much larger
I
space.
think and that space then could become something that would be like even a second gallery, which would be lovely.
Yeah.
And then it would be, you know, you could have.
Like the population is small.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Also, I think.
But you
the
could
place
have-
hasn't, like, it's not that long renovated.
No.
That's right.
Up and running, and I think.
It's finding its
feet.
feet.
Counting is probably going to take up to 5 years for anything.
Totally.
To keep into everybody's consciousness that there's a gallery here, that there's regular events, that there's, you know.
Yeah.
What it is.
And what is the population of Cavan?
County Cavan is 60,000.
That's 60,000.
And like Cavan would have 10-ish,
Yeah.
you know, something around 10.
And Joe, is there a sort of a feeling that other towns want their place, or is it okay? Is Cavan got this? Is the central focus being here accepted?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, there's 10,000 people, so, you know, you go to Kinchamber, there's 400 people.
'Cause-
You go to Virginia, there's probably 1,000. Yeah.
Yeah, because that can be a problem where you have like too many venues around a county,
Yeah.
and they're competing with each other.
Yeah.
But then you have the Rammer, and you have here.
Yeah.
And yeah.
No, it's with the Rammer now with a space there for show, and that's great.
Yeah.
That's an extra.
It'd be nice if they should travel for those of us who are too lazy to drive up here.
But also think as well about relationships north of the border.
Yes.
Don't forget those. I think that's quite interesting. And the other way round, to maybe, like, it'd be very interesting to think curatorially, maybe would we think of having a couple of artists from Northern Ireland? I just know that there's some probably really good, obviously great artists up there, but also that they have been on their knees a lot, and and they have had a really hard time, and they even like, so it could be an interesting as a border county to generate a few partnerships. That could be quite nice.
That's right.
Yeah.
A nice mix of north and south.
And I mean, it's easy to throw these things out because everything is a job of work with lots of detail and lots of effort, and there's a lot in the day job already. But it might just be very simple, doable. Consciously think, maybe I don't know, is your programme invited, or is it through open call, or is it a mix?
Well, we have a panel, and we haven't had an actual form for people to fill in.
Yeah, good.
But if anybody emails, then we hold the work and then discuss it at the panel.
Yeah.
But we are just getting together a form for the website, so that just somebody can fill in and apply, and so it will come in then. Like, it's just so few spaces, like when you think.
I know that. I know, and it's very painful because they're telling people who are really excellent. Sorry, Is VAI going to use its space, Emer, as an exhibition space? Do you know, like, is there going to, the little, the street off the street in Temple Bar at the
Curve Street.
Yeah, Curve Street. Well, even that, just that, do you know where the reception desk is?
Yes.
And then there's a little space there that has white walls, and it's got.
I had an exhibition there, and I know this is really crass.
No.
And I apologise in advance. I developed a programme that Dublin City Enterprise funded for artists in Dublin City. And as the launch of Enterprise Week, which is this week, Dublin City actually launched their Dublin City Enterprise Week in VAI on Monday.
Okay.
And Tuesday was the last day of the programme people were doing.
Yeah.
And we had this bright, but not so bright, but it was very bright at the end actually, idea to have an exhibition of the 12 participating artists on the programme.
Oh yeah, very good.
And it was great, it worked. Now it could only be because there was no one to invigilate it.
Yeah.
And that space actually doesn't belong to VAI.
Okay.
It's only the upstairs. But we had the exhibition, and I just threw caution to the wind because I thought these people deserved to have good photography. So I rang up who I consider the best photographer in Dublin, and he just happened to be free.
Yeah.
And he did the most amazing documentation and shots of the exhibition, the evening, and they now have that as a record. And
brilliant.
The Dublin City Leo were just absolutely delighted because they said it's not that they haven't sought out photography at that level because they've never had to seek out, and the images they just felt were so powerful. So that worked. So maybe we can carve out something into the future.
It would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Doesn't belong to us. I negotiated it with the landlord.
But it'd be very interesting, especially like even with VAI members, and and not I think it's a space where it's not super sonically curated, and it's not all got this just an expression of all the artists who are practicing. I don't know, that kind of thing. There's always going to be one person at a time, one artist, sort of thing, or a couple of group shows, but it'd be nice. It's right in the middle of the city, and it's very, very accessible. And it has a wall, and it's got a floor, and it's got all these windows. But everything's useful, isn't it, to an artist? Like every space,
So we need a bit more random pop-up sort of.
Yeah.
I'm not an advocate of pop-up. I mean, I come from
the pop-up
for the last 30 years, and actually it's very commercial, it's very crass, but it can be quite effective.
Yeah.
So I was in a bit of trepidation. In fact, on Sunday night I didn't get slept at all. Thinking, geez, what's this thing going to look like? It was, considering the time frame, it was absolutely superb.
Yeah, brilliant.
and we've a record of.
Well
it's kinda
done,
sad
yeah.
and taking it down, 'cause it would have been nice to have it
Yeah,
there for
yeah.
3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, well
I
done.
think as well, like, do you know, for people driving in and, you know, the street to Needing to Hear is on their right, or then people driving through the town and this street is again on their right, if, and again, I know money is probably an issue,
Signage.
but some kind of signage saying, turn right, like, do you want an hour of peace and a cup of coffee,
Yeah.
come in on your lunch break.
Great
or
idea.
Wander around,
Yeah.
something, you know, to catch people driving
Yeah.
and think, yeah, do you know, I'm going into Dunn's, but I'd love to kind of, like, just,
Yeah, signage is, like, I think they are getting a digital sign outside.
yeah.
But I love that. That's a great idea, isn't it? Like that there's something on your on your route and there's no billboards. But it'd be great to have an artist billboard. But I totally agree that like all those things that like the marketing and the PR and the signage and everything, all those matter. And they all are a cost. And there's kind of expertise in it as well. So it's kind of good because there's lots to do, but we have to do things for people here in the world now, isn't it? Artists making their practice, yeah. I better let you go. I better let all of you go. This has been a pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.